The challenge on Titan Arena. The Titan Arena floated high above Saturn's glowing rings. It was a giant metal circle built by the Orion League, a place where warriors from every world fought for pride and fame. Crowds from thousands of species filled the hollow stands, shouting names, waving banners, and waiting for blood. At the center stood Karath the Crimson, an alien gladiator known across the galaxy. His body was tall and armored with crimson scales, his eyes burned like fire, and his battle axe could cut through steel for 10 years. No one had ever defeated him to the galaxy. Karath was not just a champion, he was a living god. He once made a proud vow before the Council of Stars. If any being ever defeats me in combat, I will marry them, he said with laughter. The arena roared that day, because everyone believed such a thing could never happen. But today, something strange appeared on the challenger list. A single name written in Terran language. Captain Elias Drake. The announcer laughed when he read it. A human challenging Karath? Impossible. Humans were small, fragile, and considered weak by most alien races. When Elias Drake's ship landed, silence spread across the arena. A single human stepped out in a worn exosuit, the kind used in old wars long forgotten. His helmet was scratched, his armor dull and gray. But his walk was calm, steady, and fearless. He didn't look like a hero, but something about him made Karath pause for a heartbeat. Karath shouted across the arena, his voice echoing like thunder. Human, you dare face me? Do you wish to die? Elias lifted his head slightly, the voice inside the helmet quiet and firm. I came to fight, not to die. The crowd laughed again. But Karath's smile faded. He saw no fear in the human's stance. The referee raised the plasma banner and the countdown began. 3, 2, 1. Fight. Karath charged first, his heavy steps shaking the arena floor. He swung his axe downward with the power of a collapsing star. But Elias moved aside with perfect timing, the blade missing him by inches. Karath's next strike sliced through air again, hitting only sparks. The crowd gasped. The human was too fast, too precise. Elias carried no plasma weapons, only a simple steel sword, a relic from Earth, thin, silver, and sharp. Karath laughed. A toy? You fight me with that? Elias replied softly. This blade has ended wars. Karath attacked again, faster this time, his movements wild with rage. But every time his weapon fell, Elias was not there. He moved like wind, quiet and deadly. Each dodge, each counter was perfect. The audience began to realize they were watching something they had never seen before. For the first time in his long career, Karath missed a strike and stumbled. Elias stepped forward, pointing his sword at the alien's throat. Remember your vow. Gladiator, he said quietly. Karath growled, his pride boiling inside him. You will not win, human. He roared and swung again. Elias blocked the strike. Sparks burst in the air. The crowd rose to their feet as steel met plasma. Karath's weapon glowed red, but the human's sword held strong. Elias twisted his blade, forcing Karath to drop his axe. The giant alien fell to one knee, his breathing heavy. Every screen in the arena zoomed in on the scene. The undefeated champion. Kneeling before a human, silence ruled the galaxy for one long second. Then Elias spoke, voice calm and low. You said if anyone defeats you, you would marry them. Karath's eyes widened. He could not believe his ears. He had said those words long ago, never thinking anyone could make him keep them. The referee's voice echoed through the speakers. Winner, Captain Elias Drake of Earth. The crowd exploded with noise, shock and disbelief. Some cheered, some booed, but everyone knew history had changed that day. Elias turned away, his sword still glowing faintly. Karath stayed on his knees, staring at the human's back. Inside his chest burned something he had never felt. Respect and something else he could not name. Maybe curiosity, maybe fear, maybe admiration. When the human walked out of the arena, reporters shouted questions. How did you do it? What technology did you use? Elias only said, humans don't win because of power. We win because we never stop fighting. Back in the shadows of the locker hall, Karath clenched his fist. He looked at the mark of defeat on his armor and whispered, I made a vow, and I will keep it. He looked toward the human's departing figure. He may have won the fight, but he doesn't know what it means to bind with a warrior of my kind. The galaxy buzzed with stories of the human who defeated the alien god. No one could believe it was real, but deep in Titan Arena, something greater had started. A connection between two worlds born from battle, shaped by honor and bound by a promise, and the stars themselves seemed to whisper the same question. What happens next? The vow that shook the galaxy across the stars, the news spread faster than light. The undefeated alien Gladiator had fallen to a human. Worlds that once mocked Earth now whispered its name with awe and fear. Reporters flooded the Orion League networks, trying to learn who Captain Elias Drake really was. In his small quarters aboard the Terran ship Resolute, Elias sat quietly, polishing the old steel sword that had made history. Outside his window floated the giant rings of Saturn, glowing like halos, but his mind was far from peaceful. He kept remembering the look in Karath's eyes. Not anger, not hatred, but something deeper, almost like respect. A soft chime echoed. The door opened and an officer entered. "And Captain, the Galactic Council has summoned you," the officer said, "and the champion requests your presence." Elias nodded slowly. "I expected that." He walked through the long metallic corridors of the arena station. Every alien he passed moved aside. Staring in silence, humans were no longer invisible. They were suddenly feared. When Elias entered the council chamber, the air felt heavy. Karath stood there, surrounded by dignitaries from 100 worlds, his armor repaired, his crimson scales gleaming under the light. The council speaker, a floating creature made of light, spoke first. "Karath of the Orion League, you made a vow before the galaxy. Do you intend to keep it?" Karath's voice rumbled like thunder. "I keep my word. Always." Then his golden eyes turned toward Elias. "By the law of my people, I owe you my bond, human. You defeated me with honor, therefore I offer you union." The chamber went silent. Elias looked around, uncertain. He had fought for survival, not marriage. "This is unnecessary," he said. "I fought to prove that humans are not weak, not to claim anyone." But Karath stepped closer, his heavy footsteps echoing. "You misunderstand, Captain. Our vow is sacred. When a warrior loses to another, they bind their strength to their victor. It is not about romance. It is about respect and shared fate." The speaker nodded. "It is a spiritual bond, Captain Drake. If you refuse, it will dishonor the League and could start conflict between worlds." Elias sighed, staring into Karath's blazing eyes. "Then I accept the bond, but understand this. Karath, I don't own you. We fight side by side." "Not as master and slave," Karath gave a small nod. Agreed. The council recorded the vow, and energy rings of golden light formed around them both. A surge of power passed through Elias's veins. Strange symbols burned faintly on his skin. He felt Karath's heartbeat echo inside his own. The alien smiled faintly. "Now you will feel what I feel." The ceremony ended, and reporters swarmed the corridors. The human and the gladiator, bound forever, flashed on every screen, but behind the noise, a darker storm began to move. In a distant system, the Zin Dominion, an empire of cold-blooded strategists, watched the footage. Their leader, Archon Varel, hissed softly, "Humans binding with Orion champions? Dangerous, unpredictable, this cannot be allowed." He turned to his generals. "Prepare our fleet. The Orion League grows weak. It's time we remind them who rules this galaxy." Meanwhile, back on Titan Station, Elias trained alone in the gravity chamber. His movements were sharper now, faster, as if Karath's strength pulsed through his muscles. Karath entered silently, watching the human spar against holographic enemies. "You adapt quickly," Karath said. Elias smiled under his breath. "Humans are built for adaptation." Karath crossed his arms. "Do you regret accepting the bond?" Elias shook his head. "No, but I wonder what destiny we've just tied together." Karath looked toward the window, the stars reflecting off his crimson scales. "Destiny favors the bold, Captain, but I feel a shadow coming. Something old, something that hungers for war." The lights flickered. Alarms blared through the station. The commander's voice echoed. Unidentified ships approaching Saturn orbit. Multiple warp signatures detected. Karath's eyes narrowed. "The Zin." Elias drew his sword, the steel glowing faintly with golden light. "It seems your vow will be tested sooner than expected." Through the observation deck, the first flashes of light appeared. Massive black ships tearing through space like knives through silk. Karath roared, "To battle stations!" Elias turned to him. "You said our bond means shared fate, right?" Karath smirked. "Then let us see if fate can bleed." The Titan arena that once hosted games now became a fortress. Defensive shields powered up, fighters launched, and the quiet of Saturn's orbit turned into war. Elias and Karath stood side by side at the command deck. Different worlds, different blood, but one purpose: survival. As the enemy fleet fired its first volley, Elias whispered through the comm, "Karath, remember our fight?" Karath grinned. "I remember how it ended." Elias nodded. "Then let's remind the galaxy why humanity should never be underestimated." The battle began. Explosions lighting up the void. And somewhere deep in the chaos, destiny itself smiled. Because this was not just the story of a fight. It was the beginning of an alliance that would shake the very foundations of the stars. Battle for Saturn's rings. The alarm screamed through every corridor of Titan Station. Red lights flashed against the steel walls as crew members rushed to their posts. Outside the windows, the quiet beauty of Saturn's rings turned into a war zone. The Zin Dominion fleet had arrived, black ships shaped like blades, cutting through the glow of the gas giant. Captain Elias Drake stood on the command bridge beside Karath. The humans' calm eyes reflected the battlefield ahead. The aliens' crimson scales shimmered under the flickering light. Two warriors, one from Earth, one from Orion, bound by an ancient vow, standing shoulder to shoulder before a storm. "Enemy formation complete," said the navigation officer, her voice shaking. "2 dreadnoughts, 6 cruisers, and a swarm of fighters," Karath's deep voice rumbled. "They come to test our bond." Elias nodded slightly. "Then let's give them an answer they won't forget." He opened a comm channel to all Terran and Orion ships. "This is Captain Drake. Humanity stands with the Orion League. We will not retreat. We will not surrender." The soldiers across the fleet cheered through static. Even Karath grinned, impressed by the humans' fire. The Zin fleet moved first, launching waves of plasma missiles that streaked across the black. Titan Station's shields flared blue, but cracks began to form. "Return fire," Elias shouted. Mass driver cannons lit up the void, sending tungsten rounds slamming into enemy hulls. Karath leaned forward, gripping the console. "Target their command ship, aim for the heart." As the first Zin cruiser exploded, a cheer erupted across the comm, but it didn't last long. The enemy dreadnought powered up a strange weapon glowing with purple energy. "Brace!" shouted Karath. A beam of antimatter fire struck Titan Station, tearing through one of its defense towers. Explosions rippled through the structure, shaking the entire arena. "Damage in sectors 4 and 6, cried an officer. Elias steadied himself. "Evacuate the damaged decks, reroute power to shields." Karath turned toward him. "We can't win by standing here." Elias's eyes narrowed. "Then we take the fight to them." He pointed toward the hangar bay. "We go out there together." Moments later, the massive bay doors opened and 2 figures launched into space. Karath in his crimson exo-armor, Elias in his sleek Terran combat suit, both glowing with faint golden light from their vow bond. Their ships and the Resolute and Karath's Bloodfang soared out into the chaos, weaving through debris and laser fire. "Drake, on your right," Karath warned. Elias rolled his ship just in time to dodge a plasma torpedo, then fired a rail burst that shattered the Zin fighter behind him. "You fight like one of us," Karath said through comms. Elias smirked. "Maybe you fight like a human." Karath laughed, a deep booming sound that cut through the noise of battle. As they fought side by side, their movements began to synchronize. Each time Karath attacked, Elias defended. Each time Elias struck, Karath covered him. It was as if their minds were linked by more than the vow, as if they shared instincts. The Zin commander snarled from his dreadnought bridge. "These two, they move as one, destroy them." Dozens of enemy fighters turned toward them, forming a deadly swarm. Elias whispered, "Karath, I have an idea." "I hope it's a good one, human," Elias grinned. "Ever heard of the Terran spiral maneuver?" Before Karath could reply, Elias dove straight into the ring debris, his ship spinning and vanishing between chunks of ice and stone. Karath followed, trusting the human's madness. The Zin fighters chased, but inside Saturn's rings, visibility was chaos. Shards of frozen rock reflected radar and light. Confusing sensors, Elias switched comms to private. "Now!" Karath's ship burst from behind an asteroid, ambushing the enemy from the flank. In seconds, half the swarm was gone. When the last Zin ship exploded in a burst of blue flame, Karath roared with triumph. "That was insane and brilliant," Elias replied calmly. "Welcome to human tactics," but before they could celebrate, the dreadnought's main cannon began charging again. Karath frowned. That weapon could destroy the whole station. Elias looked at his radar, then at the massive storm of Saturn below. He said quietly, "Then we used the storm." They dove their ships toward the gas giant's atmosphere, lightning flashing around them, plasma beams chasing close behind. Karath's system screamed warnings. "The pressure will crush us." Elias's voice came through the static. "Not if we dive deep enough and turn at the right second." They dropped lower and lower, until the dreadnought followed, massive and overconfident. At the last second, Elias pulled up, shouting, "Now!" Both their ships rocketed upward as the storm's gravity pulled the dreadnought in. The Zin flagship lost control, its engines flaring out. One final flash lit up the clouds as the dreadnought disappeared into Saturn's storms forever. Silence filled the comms. Karath's heavy breathing came through first. "You are either the bravest or the craziest warrior I have ever met," Elias chuckled. "Both, probably." When they returned to Titan Station, the entire crew cheered as their ships landed. Elias stepped out of his cockpit, removing his helmet, his face streaked with sweat and dust. Karath walked beside him, massive and proud. The two looked at the damaged arena through the transparent dome. The war wasn't over, but something had changed forever. Karath placed a hand on Elias's shoulder. "Today you fought not as a challenger, but as my brother in arms." Elias looked at him and nodded. "Then let's make sure the galaxy never forgets what humans and Orions can do together." Far away in the dark corners of the galaxy, Archon Vral watched the footage in silence, his cold reptilian eyes narrowed. "So the human and the gladiator survived," he hissed. "Then we will send something that even they cannot fight." And deep in the void beyond known space, something ancient began to stir. A shadow older than any empire, watching, waiting, and whispering one word through the dark. Earth, the shadow beyond the stars. The battle for Saturn's rings had ended, but the galaxy did not rest. Titan Station floated like a wounded beast, half its towers broken, half its heart still burning. Yet in that silence after the war, something strange began to move through the stars. Captain Elias Drake stood on the viewing deck. Looking at the planet below, lightning flashed across the rings, turning the gas clouds gold and white. He could still feel Karath's pulse inside his own chest. The bond between them had not faded. Sometimes he could sense the alien's emotions even from another deck. Rage, pride, loyalty, and something new, something that almost felt like worry. Karath entered the deck quietly, his armor removed, wearing a simple robe of black fiber. He looked less like a warrior and more like a philosopher. "The Zin will not stop," he said. "They serve someone greater." Elias turned. "Who?" Karath hesitated, his voice lower. "The Vor Collective," Elias frowned. "Never heard of them." Karath nodded slowly. "Few have. They are not an empire, not a race. They are a hunger." He stepped closer to the window, his reflection glowing against Saturn's light. "When my people fought our first war centuries ago, we discovered fragments of their ships buried inside the moons, older than any map." He looked at Elias. "They live beyond the edge of our galaxy. In the void between stars, they don't conquer worlds. They consume them." Elias stayed silent for a moment, his eyes narrowing. "And now they are watching us." Karath's claws tapped against the glass. "Yes, the bond between us was not only seen by the League or the Dominion, it was seen by them." Elias exhaled slowly. "So beating you in the arena might have awakened something." In the darkness beyond Saturn, a faint shimmer appeared, almost invisible to the eye. A small object drifted there, not metal, not stone, something alive, pulsing with faint light. Titan's sensors caught it and alarms began to echo. "Unidentified life form approaching orbit," announced the AI system. Karath's eyes widened. "No, it can't be. Not this soon." Within minutes, the object grew larger, splitting into dozens of smaller orbs. They moved like living shadows circling the station. Elias ordered the defense turrets online. "Fire warning shots," he said. Beams of energy shot out, but the orbs didn't explode. They absorbed the fire like water swallowing light. "Captain, energy readings are unstable," shouted the operator. Karath clenched his fists. "They feed on power." Elias made a quick decision. "Cut the main grid, shut everything down. We go dark." The lights across Titan Station flickered off, plunging everything into silence through the darkness. The orbs floated closer, glowing softly. Elias could feel something pressing inside his head, whispers in a language he didn't understand. He grabbed his temple. "They're trying to communicate," Karath growled. "No, They are trying to enter your mind. Suddenly, one of the orbs burst through the shield and floated into the chamber. It hovered between them, its surface shifting like liquid silver. Then a voice echoed inside their thoughts. Cold and emotionless, two souls bonded as one. You have opened the door. Elias stepped back. What door? The voice replied. The door to the void beyond creation, the place where the first fires died. Karath raised his hand blaster. Get out of our station. The orb pulsed once and Karath's weapon disintegrated into dust. Then it spoke again, softer, almost curious. We have waited for your kind, human and Orion. The two who share one heartbeat. Elias's breath caught. What do you want? The answer came like a whisper through wind and static. To see if your light can survive the dark. Before either could react, the orb split apart, vanishing into thin air, leaving only a faint golden symbol burning on the floor. It matched the same pattern that had appeared on Elias's and Karath's skin during their bond ceremony. Karath touched it and frowned. This mark. It's older than my people. Elias crouched beside him, tracing it with his glove. Maybe it's a warning. Karath shook his head. Or an invitation. The council demanded an explanation. Elias sent the sensor logs. But the data made no sense. The readings showed energy outside the known spectrum, something the instruments could not define. Captain Drake, said the speaker, if these creatures are real, they threaten every world. Your bond might be the only key to stop them. Elias stared at the holographic map, where the orbs had come from. A blank space at the edge of the galaxy marked only as Sector Void 0. I'll go, he said. Karath stepped forward. You will not go alone, together. They prepared the Resolute. The ship gleamed with new armor, forged from Orion alloys and Terran steel. Crews from both worlds joined the mission, a mixed team of scientists, engineers and soldiers before departure. Elias looked back at Titan Station, the place where their story began. Karath stood beside him, silent, his hand resting on his sword. Are you ready to see what waits beyond the stars? Elias asked. Karath smiled faintly. Warriors are never ready, Captain. We just go. As the ship's engines roared to life, the rings of Saturn reflected their light. The Resolute lifted from the docking bay and turned toward the edge of known space. Behind them, the galaxy watched, uncertain, afraid, and fascinated ahead of them. The darkness opened and vast, endless and waiting, and within that darkness, the unseen voice whispered again, Come find us, children of Earth and Orion, and learn why the stars fear to shine. The journey into Void 0. The Resolute slipped beyond the known borders of the Orion charts. Stars grew distant, fewer, dimmer, as if the universe itself was holding its breath. Every sensor on the ship flickered with static. Unable to read what lay ahead, they had entered Void 0, the space between galaxies where even light was afraid to travel. Captain Elias Drake stood on the bridge, surrounded by a mix of human and alien crew. The silence outside was heavy, almost alive. Karath sat beside him, his crimson skin dim under the faint glow of the consoles. His claws tapped against the armrest slowly, rhythmically, like a heartbeat. This place is wrong, muttered the navigation officer. It's like space bends here. Elias nodded. Keep the shield steady if reality starts to fold. We'll need full stabilization. Karath's deep voice rumbled. The Vor's world is said to exist beyond shape, beyond form. Elias looked at him. You sound like you've been here before. Karath shook his head. No, but my ancestors wrote songs of this place. Songs about gods who fell asleep and dreamed the stars into being. The ship drifted through a black mist. No light, no planets, only fragments. Pieces of metal floating endlessly. Like ruins of forgotten civilizations, Elias ordered a scan. But the results came back unreadable. Captain, these fragments are older than the galaxy itself, said the science officer. Her voice trembling, Karath frowned. Older than Orion? Older than Earth? She nodded slowly. Much older. Suddenly, the ship jolted. Alarms blared. Gravitational anomaly detected. Outside the viewport, the mist began to swirl, forming a massive circular storm of lightless energy. Elias gripped the command rail. Hold the course. But the Resolute was being pulled, dragged into the spinning darkness. Karath rose from his chair. The void wants us. Captain? Elias looked straight ahead, calm even as the deck shook. Then we'll give it something to choke on. He hit the engine override. forcing the thrusters to full power. The ship screamed as it tore through the event horizon of the storm. Then silence when the light returned. Everything had changed. They were no longer in empty space. Before them floated a massive structure, half organic, half metal, shaped like a sleeping giant curled in the dark. Its surface glowed faintly with symbols, the same golden marks that burned on Elias and Karath's skin. Karath whispered, "It's alive." Elias stared at it. "Then we just found the Vor." The structure pulsed once, and a voice filled their minds. Not one voice, but thousands speaking as one. "You came through the gate of forgotten suns." Elias felt his blood freeze. "Who are you?" "We are the memory of what came before, the architects of life and the judges of what remains." Karath growled. "Judges? You have no right to judge this galaxy." "We made it," the voice replied, cold and calm. The bridge went silent. Elias clenched his fists. "If you made it, why destroy it now?" The answer came like a whisper. "Because creation must feed upon itself. So new life can begin." A beam of light scanned through the ship. Freezing everyone for a moment, Karath stumbled, clutching his chest. "Elias." "They're inside us." Elias could feel it too. A cold presence moving through his veins. Searching, testing. Then the voice spoke again. "The bond between you is unique, the first since the dawn of time. One born of challenge, not dominance. One of equals." Elias forced the words through gritted teeth. "Then why attack us?" "Because equality creates choice, and choice creates chaos." The ship's systems began to fail one by one. Lights dimmed, engines faded, oxygen dropped. Karath fell to one knee. His strength fading, Elias crawled toward the main control. His vision blurring. He pressed his palm against the console, whispering, "Humanity doesn't give up that easily." Then something incredible happened. The golden symbols on his arm and Karath's chest began to glow. Merging into one bright pulse of light, the energy surged through the ship. Forcing the Vor signal out, Karath gasped, standing again. His voice deep and furious. "You speak of creation, but you forgot the first rule. Life fights back." Elias looked at him, nodding. "Let's remind them what survival means." They activated the ship's ancient Terran weapon, the solar lance, powered by nuclear fusion. Elias aimed it directly at the heart of the Vor structure. "Fire," he said. A beam of golden energy exploded outward, piercing the void. The giant structure screamed, not in sound but in thought, the echo rattling through every mind in the ship. The mist around them shattered, revealing fragments of other worlds, Earths that never were, galaxies that might have been. The voice returned, weaker this time. "You are different, human in Orion. Your bond defies design." Elias whispered. "That's called free will." Then the structure crumbled, collapsing into starlight, and in the silence that followed, Karath looked at him and said quietly, "You just made an enemy that exists beyond gods." Elias nodded, staring at the fading light. "Then let's finish what we started." The Resolute turned away from the collapsing void, engines roaring, but as they left, one last whisper followed them through the dark. "We will meet again." When the last star dies, the crew sat in silence. Karath placed a heavy hand on Elias's shoulder. "Captain, I believe we've just changed the meaning of destiny." Elias smiled faintly, tired but unbroken. Good, it was getting boring. Behind them, the void closed, but somewhere deep within, a single light still flickered, waiting, watching, remembering, the return to a changed galaxy. The Resolute broke through the last fold of the void, engines screaming, hull glowing from the stress of re-entry. Behind them, Void Zero faded into stillness, a place that would forever haunt the stars. Ahead of them, familiar constellations reappeared, but the light looked wrong, older, slower, different. Captain Elias Drake blinked at the main display, his hands tightening on the railing. "Status report," he said, his voice rough. The officer at sensors hesitated. "Sir, the stellar map doesn't match. The constellations are off by half a degree." Karath frowned, his eyes narrowing. "That means time has shifted." Elias's jaw tightened. "How long?" The officer swallowed. "According to the drift pattern, almost 200 years." The bridge fell silent. Karath exhaled slowly. "So the void didn't just move us through space. It moved us through time." Elias stared at the stars. "Then the galaxy we knew is gone?" They sent out long-range transmissions, but most frequencies were dead. Only fragments returned, faint, distorted voices speaking in strange dialects. A repeating code flashed across the comm. Terran Protocol Omega, authorized personnel only. Karath crossed his arms. Your people survived. Elias nodded, or something wearing their name did. They set course for Sol system. The journey was quiet, every hour stretching like a memory that refused to fade. Outside, the stars looked older, their light tired. When the blue glow of Earth finally appeared, Elias felt his chest tighten. Home. But not the home he remembered. Orbiting the planet was a ring of colossal structures, gleaming, silent, each larger than Titan Station had ever been. Karath leaned forward, his voice low. Your world built an armada, Elias whispered, or became one. A communication beam locked onto them. This is Sentinel Command of the Terran Ascendancy. Identify yourself. Elias stepped toward the console. Captain Elias Drake, commanding officer of Resolute. Returning from classified mission, static filled the line. Then a cold voice replied, Captain Drake died 2 centuries ago. Please transmit genetic verification. Karath smirked faintly. You've become a legend, Captain. Elias sighed. That's the problem. After the scan, silence followed, then the voice changed, softer, almost reverent. Captain Drake, welcome home. The Council will want to see you. They were guided through the defense ring toward the surface. Earth shimmered beneath them, vast cities of light, oceans covered with solar mirrors, skyships gliding between towers. But something felt off, the air looked too clean. The cities too quiet when they landed. A group of Terran officers awaited them. Their uniforms were sleek silver, their eyes faintly glowing with biotech implants. One stepped forward. I am Commander Lyra Voss, descendant of Admiral Drake. Elias blinked. Descendant? She smiled. Your line survived, Captain. Your name became a code for courage. Karath studied the humans around him. You've changed, Lyra nodded. We had to. After the Vor War, Elias froze. You fought them? She nodded again. 100 years after you vanished, the Vor returned. Their machines swallowed half the Orion League. But your last transmission guided us. Your battle data from Void Zero became our blueprint. Karath looked at Elias, a deep pride burning in his chest. So your legend saved us. Elias shook his head slowly. Or doomed us to fight forever. Lyra gestured for them to follow. They entered a vast hall carved from crystal and steel, its ceiling showing holographic stars. At the center stood a monument, a statue of 2 warriors, one human, one alien, standing back to back. Blades raised to the heavens. Karath's voice softened. They remembered us. Elias looked up at the statues' faces, his and Karath's carved in light. I never wanted to be worshipped, he murmured. Lyra smiled sadly. Heroes never do, but celebration soon turned to dread. A distant alarm echoed through the city. Lyra touched her wrist link, her face turning pale. Outer ring detection grids have picked up something. Energy pattern identical to the Vor. Elias's heart sank. They're back, Karath growled. We destroyed their core. Lyra shook her head. Not all of it, Captain. You burned one body. But their mind was already scattered through the void. Outside the hall, the sky began to darken. Black clouds swirled, though there was no wind. Strange lights flickered over the upper atmosphere. Karath drew his plasma blade, its edge humming. Elias turned to Lyra. How long before they reach orbit? Hours, maybe less, she said. But this time, they're not attacking just one world, they're everywhere. Elias looked at Karath, the same old fire returning to his eyes. Looks like destiny wasn't finished with us, Karath grinned. Destiny should have learned to be afraid. They walked toward the command balcony overlooking the shining cities below. Humans and Orion stood together again. Side by side, ships rose from the launch pads, engines blazing blue, and above them the shadows of the Vor Collective spread across the stars. Elias raised his hand toward the horizon. Then let's make history repeat itself on our terms. Karath's deep voice echoed behind him. Let them come, we'll remind them that even gods can bleed. Lightning tore through the sky. The ground trembled as the first wave of alien fire struck Earth's outer defenses. Sirens wailed, ships roared to life, soldiers shouted, and in the heart of the storm, a human and an alien stood side by side once again, not as enemies, not as legends, but as brothers of the same war. The galaxy had changed. But one truth had not when darkness returned. Humanity and Orion would answer together, because no matter how much time passed, the vow made in the Titan arena still burned, stronger than ever. The final vow. The night above Earth burned. 1,000 stars vanished behind waves of black ships. The Vor had returned, not as invaders but as a living storm. Every defense ring around the planet glowed red. Every cannon screamed with light. And in the center of it all stood Captain Elias Drake and Karath the Crimson, the first bond brothers of two worlds. From orbit to ocean the war began. Terran fleets rose from the cities. Orion dreadnoughts warped in beside them, their hulls scarred but proud. For the first time in recorded history, human and alien banners flew together. No more leagues, no more borders, only survival. On the command deck of the flagship Resolute 2, Elias watched the sky burn. Karath stood beside him, armor reforged in gold and crimson, the mark of their vow carved across his chest. "They come again," Karath growled. "But this time the galaxy stands with us." Elias nodded, his voice steady. "Then we finish what the void began." The Vor Armada spoke through the void. "You cannot stop evolution, you are fragments of chaos." Elias smiled grimly. "Then chaos will be our weapon." The first clash shook the heavens. Human railguns fired lines of light. Orion blades cut through the dark like comets. For hours the sky was a sea of fire, until the Vor unleashed their true weapon, a core of pure thought, a black sphere that swallowed energy itself. Every ship that fired upon it simply vanished, erased from existence. Karath slammed his fist against the console. "Their core eats reality," Elias whispered. "Then we don't feed it power. We feed it something it can't consume." He looked down at his arm where the golden mark still pulsed. "The symbol of the bond, life energy," he said quietly. "Our vow." Karath's eyes widened. "You mean to link with it?" Elias nodded slowly. "If it began with us, maybe it ends with us." Karath grabbed his shoulder. "It will kill you." Elias met his gaze. "It'll kill both of us." "Remember the promise?" Karath stared at him, then nodded once. Together, they stepped into the teleport chamber. Outside, the fleet struggled, the world burning below them. The two warriors appeared on a drifting platform of metal and light, the very surface of the Vor core. It was vast, alive, whispering. "We offered you eternity," the voices said. Elias shouted back. "We chose freedom." Golden fire burst from their bodies, their bond flaring brighter than ever. Karath roared as the mark spread across his skin, his heart beating in rhythm with Elias's. The core tried to absorb them, but the light grew stronger. Every memory of Earth, every song of Orion, every name, every soul poured through them. The voice screamed. "You will destroy yourselves," Elias laughed. "Then you'll never forget us." The explosion lit half the system, a single pulse of pure living light that tore through the Vor network. Across galaxies, their ships froze, their minds collapsing like glass. The storm ended. Silence returned. When the light faded, there was nothing left on the battlefield but drifting debris and a single flare falling through Earth's clouds. It crashed into the ocean, glowing like a dying star. Search drones found two figures within, a human and an alien, unconscious, breathing, still bound by a golden chain of energy. Weeks later, when Elias awoke in a Terran medical bay, Karath was sitting beside him, bandaged but alive. "You did it," Karath said softly. Elias smiled weakly. "No, we did. The Council declared the war over, the Vor destroyed. The bond between Earth and Orion sealed forever. Monuments rose in every city. Statues of two warriors standing together beneath one banner. But the real monument was quieter, in the hearts of millions who now called each other allies. One evening, standing beneath the repaired skies, Karath looked up at the stars. "They will remember this day for 1,000 years," he said. Elias nodded. "And when the stars forget, someone will tell the story again." Karath smiled. "The story of a vow," Elias whispered. "The story of us." The wind moved through the towers. The oceans glowed with light, and far beyond, in the deepest dark of the cosmos, a faint echo lingered, not a threat but a promise. "When the next dawn comes, we will still stand." The legend of the Titan arena was complete. Not about conquest, not about victory, but about two souls, human and alien, who taught the galaxy that unity is the only force even gods must fear.